The goal really is to ensure that the packaging is not only functional, it's efficient, and it does align with the broader environmental goals.
Welcome to Food Waste Matters, where we shine a spotlight on some of the innovative, practical and impactful ways people are making a difference in the food waste fight. I'm Helen Johnston from Honey and Fox, and today's episode is the second in our series about food packaging. In our day-to-day work at Honey and Fox, we help customers build premium food brands. When we're designing packaging, the considerations go way beyond standing off the shelf with eye-catching designs, a great story, fancy foils and embossing, although all of that stuff is very important. But with a global plastic problem, rules tightening, environmental and societal needs pressing, and with our ongoing fight against food waste, there's a really big job to do for food businesses to make the right choices in how they package their products. Along with the expectations for businesses to deliver sustainability, they also need to show where their products come from, so they need to be transparent and traceable. They need to be safe. We expect them to be convenient and pretty much available all the time, of the absolute highest quality, and have super long shelf lives, all of this at reasonable prices. It's a real challenge for a food business who also grows and harvests and processes the food that we eat. So to help us unpack these complexities in packaging and to guide small businesses on where to start, we've invited Zaidee Jackson to talk to us. Zaidee is the National Business Development Manager in Sustainable Packaging at Ball Doggett, which is Australia's leading distributor of printable materials, press consumables and printing equipment. Zaidee is also the driving force behind Ecoporium and a well-respected and influential figure within the packaging industry. Ecoporium is the go-to destination for sustainable packaging. It's a support forum supporting brands to understand how to reduce their environmental impact. So I think this is going to be a really useful discussion for our listeners today. Well, welcome to the show, Zaidee. It's really good to have you here today. And you and I originally connected over a mutual love of biltong.
Yes.
While I was designing some packaging and found myself down a little bit of a rabbit hole trying to find a sustainable packaging solution for one of our clients. So we're absolutely delighted to have you on Food Waste Matters as part of this series that we're doing on packaging, and to help us unpack how small businesses can navigate this. It is a very complex world, actually, of truly sustainable packaging and the delicate kind of balancing act that businesses have to do with sustainability, quality, convenience, cost, and then also, which is what we're talking about on this podcast, minimising the amount of food that we waste. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I was thrilled to connect with you over a very important part of my life, and that is biltong, being South African. So it was a great way to bond.
Absolutely. So Zaidee, can you just start by telling us a bit about your story, how you developed this deep passion for sustainable solutions for Australian brands, and telling us a little bit about Ball Doggett, Ecoporium, and the mission behind it.
I will try and keep it brief, Helen. But there's, 3 decades ago, I decided to join a company and completely fell in love with the idea around paper packaging and design, actually, and primarily in sales and marketing roles. And my career really has been driven by my absolute passion of beautiful design and then the articulation of that design into print, so it becomes a tangible experience for the person touching it, feeling it, enjoying it, and immersing themselves into it. That really has driven my commitment to working within the industry and working with associations, all the younger generations coming into our industry, to ensure that our industry that I'm really proud to work in is sustained for many, many generations to come. And when you think about, there's over 250,000 people that work in our industry, largest manufacturing in Australia at the moment. And overall, for me, my personal ethos really revolves around that inspiration and creating experiences for our customers. And I think the navigation of sustainable packaging is such a tricky one at the moment. And my role at Ball Doggett, so we're the largest supplier of raw materials in Australia, and that's everything from print consumables to the chemistry, so the inks and the amazing, products that we get to use right across many product divisions. So it's not just labels and packaging, it's commercial print materials, it's wide format materials, and it's also roll solutions in labelling, which we have divisions that support the consumers around that space. But my role as National Business Development Manager centres around working with brands to focus on sustainable outcomes for their journey, whether they know what that looks like or not, essentially. So that's me. But I think working with brands right now and navigating this terrain, because it is uncertain, it's a once in a generational time that, you and I have spoken about before, it can be really confusing, right? And where do you start? So I think where we drove the conversation was to create an online portal. And that for us has been Ecoporium by Ball and Doggett. We've positioned it as the destination for sustainable packaging, and it really has been a conduit to a conversation that many people didn't realise they needed to know now and have now. And I'm sure you have that in your conversations with your brands that you work with as well. But I think choosing, for us, the Ecoporium brand is really the commercial objective is to work with brands to make sure they're choosing the right materials for the right application, the right functionality. And, it's understanding what it means to that brand to start with and helping them navigate that, because for us, education is absolutely vital. I think when we've been able to be proactive in supporting brands and printers and converters to the APCO national packaging targets, it really has exemplified this unwavering commitment that everyone within our business has gone on this journey, and underlining the fact that there's an urgency that needs to happen and there's an education process that needs to happen. And we've been able to bring with Ecoporium this unwavering support of voices of specialists and practitioners within the Australian packaging industry. And they've brought on their expertise and been very impactful in educating our consumers. So it is a community hub. We've got our product index on there, but we also have podcasts like this one, where we share information that is really about a shared economy for people to take agency and make decisions on their materials.
Yeah, totally. And I've really immersed myself in some of your content, especially when I've been trying to help our clients, which are small businesses. It's really difficult to unpick what they need to do, and also kind of what true sustainability in materials actually means. So that sort of leads me on to my next question, which is really, like, in your view, what does truly sustainable packaging mean? There's lots of different things that, we talk about, kind of biodegradable, and like it has to be, recyclable, and all of, and like you say, there's all these goals that we need to be reaching for. And it can be very difficult to navigate, in particular for small businesses that don't have a big budget or a big team to help them do that. So for you, in particular for like small businesses, what does truly sustainable mean as far as packaging goes?
Helen, that's a massive question, right? Especially for a small business, because it can be challenging. And as you say, their investment readiness could be their entire life savings that they're talking about. And so they don't have a second guess sometimes, right? So packaging really is about being fit for purpose. And if you lean into the incredible work the Australian Institute of Packaging does, they're the peak body for education in Australasia. It really is multifaceted. And it has to be, because it involves so many areas, but it's about protecting, preserving, and considering all aspects around distribution, storage, consumer interaction, as you know. And whilst I think true sustainability in packaging is ideal and it's a utopia experience for a lot of people, it is about minimising your environmental impact, right, and how you do that. But it's also about understanding what that life cycle looks like. Now, this in itself I think as a country and for a lot of brands, there is a premature state that we're in because not everybody understand what the supply chain may look like, and it can be a challenging environment for small business to look at because their mind is on the product that they're producing, what the brand's going to look like, and the feel and the definition of what that brand means to them personally. So there's all those elements that we look at. So I think to start with, it's understanding and defining what sustainability means for that brand, in my view. Then understanding what material choices they're going to make, whether it's even from the ingredients, the provenance of those ingredients, and understanding, what that looks like and how that can impact a low environmental footprint for that particular brand. Minimalisation and not over-engineering packaging for the sake of, rather than for the need of that transport and protection, and designing it for reuse and recycling. The targets are, skewed towards curbside recycling, but it's also around that innovation piece. But within innovation, sometimes it takes risk and it takes bravery, but it's also having the right suppliers to support you on that journey. And suppliers are going to have your back, to that full extent, and local sourcing where possible. That's not always going to be the case because potentially you're going to need vessels and things from overseas, or, the cost impact, the commercials around that are obvious. So some people do, or most people do go overseas. But understanding if you want to be truly sustainable, you got to sit there and look at what your investment readiness looks like. And the other thing is around understanding what your storytelling looks like, because greenwashing is obviously something that small businesses will be impacted on as well. There's no point communicating to a consumer something that appears to be what it's not. And I think from the balance between sustainability and practicality also needs to be considered. It's thoughtful choices. It's aligning, as I said, with the right supply chain, but also mostly aligning with the values of the brand that they are creating.
Definitely. It's like taking, when you're building any brand, it's like taking that holistic view and looking at every part of your business and how you're behaving in it, as well as looking at your consumer and, how you can communicate with them, what you're trying to do. Yeah. And your price, it's a very difficult balance to make, but it's getting the right partnerships, I think, is really important to move forward and get a good understanding on how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really lucky in Australia. I mean, when you look at packaging, for instance, in Australia, we sit in the top 5 of the World Packaging Organisation when it comes to the awards. You've got the Peter Awards that small businesses can absolutely go in and celebrate who they are and what they're doing. I think with the mandates that have been announced, I think 9th of June last year, and what that looks like from a sustainable packaging design guidelines, it's also understanding that and not just letting somebody else take the reins of your brand. So immerse yourself as a small business to understand, what is this woman talking about right now? Sustainable packaging design guidelines. Where can I go and get those? They'll be up on our Ecoporium website, and it's literally from APCO and driven with the Australian Institute of Packaging behind that. It's doing the right research, and if you don't know where to start, I think the goal is, as you said, work with design agencies like yourself that knows exactly where the terrain is going to hit some obstacles and how to navigate through that. Because it's a journey, right? And everyone says that it's a journey, but it really is. People that are on the adoption curve ahead of the game, the national packaging targets were set in 2018. You've got the large FMCGs, they've reached 100%, for their on-pack communication as well. That's a big part of it. But others are only just adopting it, while others are in an innovation stage, and that's why I say get started.
Yeah. And it's a future-proofing thing as well for these businesses, and it's a cost thing also. You don't want to invest. We know that packaging costs a lot of money for businesses to produce quite often, and you need to be ahead of the curve with that, so that you're not making investment now that is going to be obsolete in 2025 or whatever.
Absolutely. And that forecasting is really crucial. So having a look at your business plan and looking at your financials and seeing what that looks like and where you need to potentially have some leverage to move. Because if you need to look at, I don't know, if it's a fibre-based packaging element, or if it's a vacuum sealed situation that you're looking at, or the vessels that you're looking at, has your product been tested correctly to fit in the line that whether it's hand produced or hand filled. It's all those things that you want to consider as well. But it's about the research that you really need to start and go, where do I sit in this pond? What are my immediate priorities?
Definitely, yeah. And well, let's talk about the consumer a little bit. So what do you see as happening as far as kind of the average supermarket consumer and their expectations about the food that they buy? And, what are the challenges that small businesses have to meet these expectations kind of while maintaining their sustainability goals? Because there's really, it's quite a balance when you walk into a supermarket and you see all the packaged products and, there's a lot of expectations from consumers around quality and shelf life. And
yeah, absolutely.
So, what do you see happening there?
It's interesting. I literally just had a conversation earlier again with a friend of mine, Sally Williams, and you may know her as Sustainable Sally, but she has said this one comment to me literally about 2 years ago, and it stuck with me, and it's so pertinent to share this now. As brands, you put on shelf with the assumption that consumers know what to do with it thereafter, but you're giving the consumer the responsibility to take that into their own environment and either dispose and use and transport. So it's really important to understand through the lens of a consumer what the situation is. And right now, cost of living impacts, as we know, centres on decision making for consumers. And this is a reality. Not everybody has the privilege to go in and choose products that suit their sustainable moral compass, because sometimes there is an extra expense to that. I'm not saying it's always the case, but the reality check is that, having authentic, sustainable offering on shelf does come at a cost right now. And as a business, you've got to make that decision from a consumer. And I'm saying, there are astute consumers that they can push their financial positioning and tend to buy products that they're also loyal to. You know what I mean? Even though you make room for it in your budget each week and things like that, because it's about the transparency that those products are offering that consumer, so they know when they're taking it home what they're buying, where it's coming from, because it's a trusted brand for them. And I think the expectations, in my view, there's several considerations, right? So it's the health aspects of the food. Is it free from additives? Are they looking for brands that adopt sustainable practices or about to, with their continued improvement? And they're happy to stay along that journey as long as there's transparency, and educating them on that journey is such a crucial part of that, the traceability conversation. Convenience, huge part. I mean, you look at the larger FMCGs and where these smaller brands are trying to sit in, there's science behind the positioning and the touch points within these brands, and making sure that these consumers are connected to those things in those ways. But when you're talking about convenience, for me, it's also around, is it reusable? Are there reusable pouches? Fibre-based packaging, can that be repurposed? For instance, I love the example that H&M had a little while ago. I know that's a big fast fashion brand, but their hangers that were taken home, the hangers, you take it off the shelf, you go and buy it, the bag then converts into the hanger, you put that in your own cupboard, which I think is so innovative. And small businesses could really look to invest in thoughtful and impactful design, because it really reflects the sustainability commitments of that brand. That's what our really attuned consumers are looking at. There's access immediately on your phones right now. And the younger generation, 18 to 35, I think Monash study last year in August was suggesting that they are willing to pay more for products that are recyclable, and the packaging that is recyclable as well. It's leaning into what the consumer surveys are saying. Get into that data. understand what that looks like, because it could shape the decisions you're making internally. And I think, have an authentic, compelling storytelling on your media channels, whether it's having a QR code. Everyone understands what a QR code does, regardless of your demographic these days. Everyone had to use it a few years ago, right? So having a QR code to take agency on your messaging. Don't let the consumer guess at the end of it, because once that gets home, your tone of voice, your marketing strategy can still sit within their home through a QR code. This is what the consumer's looking for. And it's really about potentially also then extending that and sharing the other part of your product portfolio once they get home. Going, I've bought this product A, but they also have product B, C that aligns with my values. So consumers are looking for, in my view, somebody that's trusted, sustainable, and willing to share their journey, because they're investing their financial reward at the end of a 7-day week to make sure what they bring home is important to them and their families. I hope I've covered that.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just like listening to you thinking, I'm that consumer. I'm there. And this is what we talk to our clients about as well. And the importance of the story to communicate all those things as well. And making sure that, you can have a set of values within your business, but if you're not weaving the story around that and communicating that, using technology, using your packaging, using, helping them understand also how to recycle your packaging or how to reuse your packaging, communicating those things, you can be doing all the right things. But if you're not talking about it, you're not helping your customer buy your product essentially and understand.
Absolutely. And, if you look at APCO and the work they're doing and the ARL program, which is the on-pack labeling system through the prep tool, there's over 500,000 SKUs in Australia with 1,000 brands. So consumers get what's going on. They're looking for that now. They understand that if I go to that particular product, I know what to do with it. I need to strip off the top, unpack, fold down and dispose of in the right bin. These are the really crucial conversations that you can have just through imagery on your packaging. But I think, circling back to what I said before, small brands, as they scale up, then they have the finance and resources to call on a branding agency, and then they scale up again, and then they scale up again. So it's really about looking at that extra push within their financial stream to maybe try and start that journey earlier, because the design agencies and packaging specialists are very well versed in how to cut through the noise, and to get to the consumer's ear.
Definitely. So we've touched a bit on fit for purpose, and this podcast is about food waste. So in particular, in our battle against food waste, balancing, sustainable packaging with the complex requirements of some food products, like some fresh, temperature controlled, fragile, they need to think about shelf life. Some might have a global supply chain. They're traveling a long way to get to their customer. So balancing that with sustainability can be really challenging, and materials are so important in that story and that journey. So could you expand a little bit more on what fit for purpose packaging means, and how businesses can sort of successfully address those challenges with that packaging?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that, because I think a lot of people skew towards sustainability immediately, and it is a very pertinent part of the journey. But, fit for purpose really is the packaging that is designed to be used to fulfill the intended functionality and do that effectively. So there's various considerations around that, where it's sustainability, cost, and consumer needs. Now, if you speak to Nerida Kelton, which I know you do, and she's amazing, and I love her emphatic, it's fit for purpose. It literally is about, the effective serving of the intended purpose to protect, preserve that product in transport. And it's also about shelf life, as you spoke about. It's about being cost effective. It's about the consumer having a positive experience. The older generation, they have issues opening things and things like that. These are all these considerations that you've got to look at, right? And, you know, the goal really is to ensure that the packaging is not only functional, it's efficient, and it does align with the broader environmental goals. And when you talk about preservation, you know, we spoke about that before. It's about the quality and the extended life shelf. You know, is there a barrier that's providing an environment for factors like moisture and light and oxygen in there? Is there convenience? Is it user-friendly? As I spoke about before in regards to the handling element of it as well. And how does it transport to, you know, in the temperatures from Tasmania to Queensland to Perth or overseas in cargo? How is it packed? All these elements really are important to consider. And, you know, I think whilst the practice of trying to balance the need for sustainability with ongoing efforts, I think environmentally you can actually take your customer on a journey with that. If I look at Coles, so I work with the FMCGs, you know, with Coles, for instance, I had Caitlin Richards, though she's a group sustainability sourcing manager, speak at Apex just recently. It's that interview, highly recommended for your viewers, on Ecoporium. They spoke about the shelf life of a cucumber. You know, brands like Coles and everyone else are working exceptionally hard on their brand and with their packaging technologists, literally on the quest to make sure that the consumers are getting an experience and quality. Now, food waste is what we're talking about today. So the reality is, if the continental cucumber has a plastic wrap on it, consumers that aren't educated will go in there and go, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to buy that. I'll rather buy this one. The reality, it's adding 7 days to shelf life. And people don't realise that that is actually the case because, you know, you're talking about the physical protection, you're talking about the barrier and moisture loss that potentially happens with, you know, the deterioration of cucumbers, because that can wilt, right, if it's got too much moisture in it. So there's a high water content around that as well. And then there's also the reduced contamination element in transporting things that people need to consider. So do you look at it being over-engineered? If you're moving to a fibre-based conversation now, going, you've got a product A, there's the vessel that's holding it tight so it's not moving. Sometimes there's another vessel in there that maybe doesn't need to be there, but it's adding another layer of depth and colour and design. And then it's the outer packaging, then there's the label, and then there's this. Do you need it all? And how can you pull back and pare back to the essential need, and how is that fit for purpose in the consumer's hands?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, like, listening to you then, I'm that person that goes and like, I'm not going to buy that because it's wrapped in plastic. I'm going to buy this one. And, you know, you kind of have really helped me visualize that pile of wasted products and food that comes from that, you know, it degrades quicker, and you know, all of those things that you don't consider when you walk to a supermarket, and all, because, you know, we've had it drilled into our minds about plastic, and it's kind of the first thing that comes into your head. But like having that bigger picture about what actually, you know, we don't want to waste these products is a really good way of kind of looking at that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, households waste about 70% of total food waste. And it's about, I think it's 5.3 million tonnes of waste per annum. That's Food Waste in Australia Guide. I think 2023 they released that. You know, there's 7.6 million tonnes of food wasted each year. That is extraordinary to think about. I mean, Woolies do a great job in their sector as well. Aldi's is doing a great job there by reducing plastic. But, you know, plastic is not the enemy, and we need to make sure consumers understand it. There is plastic that actually is a technology, and it's engineered to support and reduce food waste. Coles in the bakery section, we've all gone and bought an Anzac biscuit or a chocolate biscuit there. That's actually in rPET 100% recycled content plastic that we bring into the country, specifically for Coles. And anyone else that wants to use 100% PCR, because that is a major start to understanding that all those products in there, their preservation life is extended by being in there. And that's a decision made by pack technologists within those businesses that are trained and have the experience. So Coles, I think, Woolworths, even tier 2 brands, the lower brands that not as large is the word I'm looking for. But that education piece, you'll see more and more coming through, because I was the same before I got into this space around sustainable packaging, going, really? But once I understood that plastic can be a technology, fibre-based products absolutely serve a purpose. You've even got food that needs to go into microwave. It's got barriers in there. Then you're talking about, and not to complicate the situation too, but you've got elements around the forever chemical that the government is trying to reduce, the PFAS. So there are all these scientific considerations as to why brands are making their decisions, and making sure that it's fit for purpose for your product. That's your responsibility, in my view, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's really interesting stuff, and I'm learning in this conversation, which is fantastic.
Great. I'm learning every day. That's the thing about it, It's about sharing this information and doing amazing podcasts like you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And so really, finally, it's been a really great discussion this morning. But finally, for small businesses who are starting their sustainability journey, which, as you said, some of them at the beginning, some of them are innovating, but for those who are at the very start, have you got some, wrap up with some practical steps that they can take to kind of begin implementing some more sustainable packaging solutions into their business and their products?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, like I said, the journey starts with them, right? So for small businesses embarking on a sustainability journey, they need to know they're not the only ones to start with. There are large organisations that are doing the same thing. So essentially, regardless of size, we're all in the same boat. Let's start there. And that transitioning, so they're not alone, is what my message is. That transition is about how sustainable packaging can make really great impact. Now, a crucial step in reducing environmental impacts and meeting consumer expectations, it's about beginning to assess your current packaging, right? Understanding what it looks like now, setting really clear sustainability goals, and exploring sustainable alternatives. And I'll break that down a little bit. Engaging with your suppliers, test new options, look at how you can innovate. Educate if you do have a team, or if it's your husband or your wife or your kids working with you, educate them on that journey, right? And why you are making certain decisions around that commitment to sustainability. I think these practical steps slowly can make a positive difference, but we, Ball Doggett, do have practical sustainability pathway steps that we've come up with. We are not sustainable practitioners, but we are working with a lot of them, and these are just from our view and just understanding, what that pathway could look like, and they're really just for considerations. They're available on ecoporium.com.au under our EcoConnect section, which goes into our articles. So this really is around being true to yourself and your brand, right? And what you're putting out on the market. And the first real step is, I said it before, define sustainability for yourself and what that looks like for you. What does it mean, right? Break that down. If you don't know and can't translate it, look at getting a sustainability consultant. The growth market in sustainability consultants that have gone on their soul journey has been extraordinary, and they're making extraordinary impact because we have some extraordinary sustainable practitioners in this country. It will literally shape the course of the destiny, and you're preparing for success if it's new, but you're looking to make a financial return on your business as well. I do understand that, but if you don't know, Work with suppliers that want to create really authentic impact and willing to take you on a journey that suits you and that's tailor-made to you. And ultimately, at the end of it, giving you agency on your brand. But the biggest thing for me is just be brave. Really just be brave around what it means for you, and then working out, as I mentioned those earlier steps before, do the research, understand data integrity for your brand and what that looks like. Look at your touch points. How are you analysing? Are you using AI, for instance, in ways that you've never used before? Don't be scared of AI. And I'm coming from a person that's in paper, print and packaging. AI is not the enemy. But yeah, just be brave. But I highly recommend you guys jump on to ecoporium.com.au and download that particular pathway. Or we do have Eco Audit, which is on the website as well. Fill out a few things. I'll get that ping straight away and I can connect and like I did with you, Helen, talk around materials and potential suppliers that could really connect and engage. So hopefully that has answered that question.
No, fantastic. And I mean, I didn't use your Eco Audit tool before I spoke to you. I was lucky enough to be connected with you directly. But I'll definitely be doing that in future and with my clients as well.
You don't need to do that now. We're fine.
Or I'll just call you.
Yeah, just call me.
And I love just like framing this whole discussion as an opportunity and a good investment for businesses to think about this rather than something to be scared of.
Absolutely.
Or something that's an inconvenience sometimes. You know, I have to think about this as well. Not only do I have to make my food product, I have to think about all of these other things as well. And so I love how you've reframed that as being an opportunity for future growth for businesses also. So
absolutely. There is one link as well that you might be interested in, just as you said that. There's the SME ARL marketplace that small businesses, it's been designed by government and AIP to go on and support. So there's a lot of educational animated videos. So, you know, after a hard day, grab a cup of tea and sit there, and this conversation will be able to be unpacked and where to go and what to do next. So literally our government is not leaving us, or APCO is not leaving us out in the lurch, because small businesses is the heart of the Australian community. Let's be honest. Do you know what I mean? It's mums and dads and it's families giving it a really good crack and trying to impact their industry. So I applaud them.
It's all about the people.
Always. It starts and it ends.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Zaidee. Well, that wraps up another episode. Every little bit counts when it comes to tackling food waste. And remember, each one of us can really make a difference. Talking to Zaidee was a great reminder to consider the bigger picture when packaging our food products, and that there's help available to make the right choices. And if you want to keep the conversation going and be the first to hear about our latest episodes, subscribe with us on www.foodwastematters.com.au. While you're there, you can check out our past episodes and see what other guests have shared with us. If you've got a question or want to share your food-saving tips, maybe you're doing something incredible in the food waste space and want to join us on the show, drop us a line at foodwastematters@honeyandfox.com.au. We'd love to hear from you. So we look forward to catching you in the next episode.